Hey guys, welcome back. We are here today with another episode of Metal Inside Me. If you're just listening to the podcast, we have some nice coronavirus protective gear on right now. That is because the coronavirus has now spread throughout the United States, and me and Chris were about to go to a awesome metal concert tonight, but it got canceled.
That's true. We were going to see Devin Townsend with Hawken and the Contortionist.
And it got canceled. We were actually really planning very seriously to show up to the concert wearing these respiratory masks just to see the Contortionist, but it got canceled. So we're gonna react to My Chemical Romance's Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge.
We are.
We can take these off now. So, due to popular demand, we are reacting to My Chemical Romance's album, Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge. If you haven't seen it, we have a video reacting to My Chemical Romance's The Black Parade. Chris is familiar with their music. I personally have not listened to, honestly, any of their music besides the one song, Welcome to the Black Parade.
Well, you've listened to the Black Parade at this point.
Well, yeah. At this point, I've heard that whole album.
Yeah.
And disclaimer, if you guys haven't seen that video, for me listening to it for the first time, background, I'm a metalhead. Haven't really listened to emo music. I really love that album. I think on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of enjoyment, I gave it like a 7 or 8.
Yeah, I thought that it went very well.
Yeah.
Which was good for me because I've always liked My Chemical Romance, and I've always liked that album in particular, which is why that I started us with that album.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still saying album. Why I started us with that album. And I think that this is the natural next best choice.
Okay.
Something for you to consider before we jump into this album is that this is the one that really made them.
Oh, interesting. The only thing I know about this album is it came 2 years before the Black Parade.
That's right.
2004. Black Parade was 2006.
That's right.
And that's literally all I know. I think, Chris, you've already told me it has a central story that it's talking about.
Right. So the last album that we listened to, The Black Parade, which comes after this, was more conceptual.
Mm-hmm.
It was about death. It was about someone who was dying. And each of the songs, at least for the most part, can be identified as dealing with a different emotion related to knowing that you are going to pass away.
Mm-hmm.
This album has much more of a story to it. This one is much more high fantasy.
Okay.
This one is much more sci-fi.
Okay.
And something that you need to know that I may have mentioned to you before is that frontman Gerard Way, he is a writer for comic books.
You've told me that before.
So he writes The Umbrella Academy,
okay,
which is a comic book. It's now been made into a series. And he was a comic book writer even when they started this band.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, he was in New York City when they started the band. I don't know if you know this. You don't.
No.
They started the band because of 9/11.
Whoa! The entire My Chemical Romance band.
That's right. Gerard Way started the band because he was in New York when 9/11 occurred.
Oh wow!
If I'm misunderstanding this, feel free to correct me. My understanding is that he was in New York because of his job as a comic book writer, or his aspiration as a comic book writer, and he saw the towers fall.
Wow.
And feeling the sort of cultural depression that we were all in, he started a band that acknowledged those feelings. And it's important, and we'll talk about pre-emo at some other point, but it's important to acknowledge that this was, a bit of a departure from what emo had been previously. This was reactive. It was reactionary. And getting onto the concept of this album, which is not entirely tied to, it has nothing to do with 9/11.
Okay.
But I just wanted you to understand that he was a comic writer,
yeah,
and that he was inspired by a whole culture of pain and anguish at the time.
Okay. Yeah, guys, just so you know, I don't know anything about My Chemical Romance. I would say I'm a fan of theirs now after listening to The Black Parade and really enjoying it.
Right. So understanding that on one hand, My Chemical Romance came from the mind of a person who writes comic books, and on the other hand, it comes from the mind of a person who was concerned with cultural depression. I will tell you that the basic storyline of this album is about a man who dies in a gunfight with his lover.
Okay. Wait, like they're fighting?
Not each other.
Okay.
But they die in gunfire.
Okay.
And when he gets to hell, the devil informs him that his lover is still alive. But if he wants to be with her again, he must collect 1,000 souls for the devil.
Okay.
And so this album is about his murder spree for the devil.
Okay, in hell.
He's not in hell when he's killing people.
Oh, so
he goes back to Earth to murder evil people.
Oh, so a Dexter situation.
Yes.
Okay, he's going up to murder evil people, and then he can be
with his love.
Okay, back on Earth.
Right. Okay. But it's also important to point out that almost all of the songs on this album have another meaning beside the concept.
Oh, okay. So we'll try to dig into that.
And as we go song by song, we're going to talk about the other things that thematically paint these tracks.
Okay.
So are you ready to go in?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right.
If you guys are listening to this podcast, it'll cut from us beginning the song and then the discussion of each song.
That's right. So if you haven't heard this album, we highly recommend that you go listen to it while we're doing this. Yes. This is our commentary on the album, and since Connor has never heard it before, this is effectively his review of the album.
And reaction.
Right, of course. Reaction, review, and all right. So we're going to get into track 1, which is called Helena.
And then in parentheses, So Long and Goodnight.
That's right.
And here we go. 1, 2, 3, go. Whoa.
So you can see why the subtitle is So Long and Goodnight.
Yes. So we just listened to Helena. Chris, I don't know if you looked at me when I was watching that, but I was smiling during the whole song. I loved that. I want to say that I've maybe heard that before. Is that one of the popular songs from this album?
So I have to confess, it's possible I've shown you that before.
Okay.
At some point in our history.
Okay. Because I feel like it sounded a little familiar, but oh my gosh, that was a fantastic song. I mean, just so catchy, so melodic. One of my, I don't know if I'd call it a complaint because it's not really a complaint, but on the last album, he kind of does something with his voice where it sounds a little bit annoying, kind of I don't know.
It's a little nasal.
A little nasally, but that doesn't really annoy me. It doesn't scare me away from the music.
Yeah.
But he doesn't do that at all. He sings throughout it. It's emotional. In the context of this story, I'm assuming what I got from the song is he's saying goodbye to the lover that died in the gunfight.
So yes. So in the context of the album's concept and the story, that is what's happening.
Okay.
Is I'm dying, and it's important to point out that at this point the protagonist also thinks she's dying.
Okay.
They're dying together.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the case.
Okay.
But he's saying goodbye. Now, first, before I talk about the double meaning, I want to point out that something I really love in the song is the dynamic range and the modulation of his voice. He shifts between singing and throwing a little distortion on, getting close to almost screaming on the bridge.
Yeah.
And those changes are really important. Mm-hmm. And dynamic range is the change in overall volume.
Yeah.
And it starts out very quiet. He's literally whispering. Mm-hmm. And the tremolo picked riff at the beginning is very quiet as well. Mm-hmm. And then it explodes.
Yeah.
It literally explodes.
I know.
A couple of measures in.
Yeah.
Now, and that's awesome, something that makes this band really great is that they really are excellent musicians.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, is that if you pay attention to any given segment or section of the song, there's just a lot going on.
Yeah.
You know, the lead guitar is always doing something interesting that is complementing his voice. It's not doing what he's doing. is providing something different that is an excellent counterpoint to what he's doing.
Yeah.
Now, as for the double meaning,
okay, because honestly, I didn't really pick up on a double meaning just because you told me what the album's about. I just kind of got he's saying goodbye to a lover.
As I understand it, outside of the strict narrative of this album, this is also about the death of the vocalist's grandmother.
Ooh.
Her mother, her name was Helen, but apparently her real name was Helena.
Okay.
And so the fusion of those two names is Helena.
Okay.
And so while also telling the story he wants to tell, he is expressing his feelings about losing someone who was very important to him.
That makes a lot of sense because if you guys don't know, we're watching the music videos as we react to this, and he is. That's just a notification. What I was a little confused about, he's the one carrying the casket, and if it's his lover dying with him, that doesn't make as much sense. I mean, like, so if it's someone, if he's partially writing the song about someone he knows who he loved, he's the one carrying the casket.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
And in the context of the narrative, you have to consider that this is a revenge story.
Yes.
And so the selfishness of that perspective is still important.
Someone you know who you loved so much died, and so the revenge, it's like you gotta revenge them and get them back.
Exactly. It's not about justice. It's about revenge.
Yeah.
It's about killing, all these people so that you can have what you want.
Yeah.
And we sympathize with the narrator because it's about love.
Yeah.
But he's also, as you'll soon learn, going to be a mass murderer.
Okay.
And I love that they started with that song.
Yeah.
I think that they knew how good that song was because it's the first song on the album, but it was the third single released.
Okay.
So they definitely knew how significant that song was.
Yeah.
And I'm glad he liked it because I personally love it, and I think that it is an excellent introduction to this album.
Oh yeah.
Because it demonstrates to the audience exactly what you're about to get into, which is exactly what a great introductory song should do.
Oh yeah. And one thing that I think is important to note is we can get into this later after the album, but to the fans who are probably listening to this and who might be My Chemical Romance fans, I haven't heard them before. I'm a metalhead. I love heavy metal music, and just what I knew about My Chemical Romance is that they're just this emo rock band over there, and not many metalheads really listen to them. And after actually listening to their music, it's fantastic. I mean,
we're opening minds.
Exactly.
Here.
Yeah.
I
mean,
yeah. In case we didn't make that clear in the introduction, Connor's coming into this dry. He's never heard it before. That's the dynamic of this whole thing. And I have heard this many times before.
Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right. So you ready to go into track 2?
Yes. Track 2. Give 'em hell, kid.
Okay.
All right. 1, 2, 3, go. All right.
So that one goes by fast, huh?
Yeah, it does. Give 'em hell, kid. A little hard to process the song so quickly. I mean, it was a 2-minute song.
Yeah.
To me, it just sounded like kind of reiterating the first song, kind of telling his lover that he missed her, that he's going to do anything, and just...
Right. So in the context of the narrative, I remember hearing somewhere that apparently this one is supposed to be from the other person's perspective. Like, the protagonist's lover is egging him on.
Okay, I see.
Like, right here at the beginning of this high fiction narrative, she's like, hell yeah, kill them all.
Oh,
right?
I see. So she's... now it's going to her perspective. She's back on Earth. She survived the gunfight, and now she knows her lover's dead. And she's telling him how much she misses him, but she apparently is aware of this deal with the devil, and she's like, give him hell, kid.
Right. And it's important to point out, I don't know that for a fact.
Okay.
I just, for some reason, have that in my head as that's the way I interpret it.
Okay. No, I mean, that makes sense.
From a musical perspective, it's not just the length, but it's also the incredible punk rock influence.
That's what I was gonna say, dude.
That drives this by so quickly.
Yes.
It comes in with that bass riff that almost sounds like something off of Green Day's American Idiot.
Yeah.
Which is in the same era.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's power chord driven.
Oh yeah.
You know? And
I'm not as familiar with punk rock, but when I was just listening to that, I was like, this is punk. This is like
yeah.
He kind of did a harsher vocal, I don't know, kind of yelling during the song. Just kind of the fast pacedness of it, the way he just belted the lyrics. It just made me feel punk rock.
Yeah, and despite who is supposed to be speaking at this point with it through the lyrics, that's confluent with this point in the narrative, right? Where punk rock spirit, it's very anti-establishment, or very much self-invested, and we're just going to do this thing because we believe that it's right.
Yeah.
And so the music and the lyrics are consistent with one another, and that's artistic merit. I mean, that's really a great thing to pull off if you can.
Yeah.
So
all right. So the next song is To the End.
That's right.
All right. We're going to dive right into it. To the End in 3, 2, 1, go. Whoa. Okay. That was To the End. We just listened to that. So I'll give you my take on the song. Now, given this might be completely wrong, just given what I know so far, I either think this song is about anger towards his lover, either doubting her love for him. Would you bury me? Would you carry me to the end? Would you actually marry me? So possibly that from his perspective from hell. Or it is about his first kill, describing the first person he is going to seek revenge on, a evil person.
And the good news is, I think both of those are valid.
Oh, shoot.
Because on the one hand, I think that a lot of this album is about his disconnection from his lover.
Okay.
And so let's just take that outside the context of the narrative.
Okay.
A lot of this album is about disconnection in general. Disconnection from the people around you, from society, because we live in a society.
Yeah.
Joker meme.
Yeah.
To disconnection from the people that you think you're close to. And then in the context of the narrative, you have a person who is damned and really quite permanently separated from the person he loves and is desperately trying to get her back by doing evil things. Now, as for the kill, it's my understanding that the portion of this narrative that is being illustrated in this song is a target of his who is getting married. And so he is crashing a wedding party via murder.
Oh. That's good.
Yeah. So
what is the line that they keep repeating about all the cyanide you drank?
Yeah, so he puts cyanide in the wine, and you don't have to shoot them.
Oh, dude. Okay. And again, I'll say the style of this I really dig. He does kind of he can yell in like a singing way, and it works in his songs.
It sounds very desperate, which works for the style that they're going for.
Yes.
Additionally, you'll notice that they're taking much less time with these songs.
Yeah, I mean, the last song was like 2 minutes. This one was 3 minutes. They're very quick, repetitive choruses that hook you.
Yep, it's still very catchy.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a lot of musical variation that's going on as well. It's not just about writing a pop song or a catchy song. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because as we progress in this record, spoiler alert, you're going to hear some very catchy, very poppy things.
Okay.
But this one is much more to the point.
Okay.
Which is, they hadn't reached the point that they were at the Black Parade. I'm not saying that this is worse. I'm just saying that they hadn't ventured off to experiment in the ways that they did.
Yeah.
And also, this, as I said at the beginning of this is very much about self-definition.
Yeah.
The band is defining what kind of music they're going to make on this album.
Yeah.
This is their second album, but this is the one where they really became My Chemical Romance.
Yeah.
So...
You know what's interesting that I just thought of, which is, so me becoming a My Chemical Romance fan right now and really loving the Black Parade.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of like excited for what fans experienced listening to this album and loving it, and then hearing the Black Parade. Like, so far, this is a great album.
Right.
But the Black Parade, with just the experimental nature of it, with just the rock opera,
Yeah.
I feel like that would just be such an epic, like, such an epic twist to a band that you already really like.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on right now. The narrative becomes much more interesting. Not that it isn't interesting, but it becomes much more interesting for us to talk about as it goes on.
Okay.
And for now, yeah, they're just hitting us with some really solid rock songs that draw from prog, that draw a little bit from post-hardcore. You're going to hear a lot of post-hardcore on the second half of the record.
Okay.
And yeah.
Okay. So the next song is "You Know What They Do to Guys Like Us in Prison."
Great title.
Great title. Long title. And here we go. In 3, 2, 1, go. Okay. So that was "You Know What They Do to Guys Like Us in Prison."
Yeah.
My initial reaction to the song, I really liked it. In terms of the story and the context of this album, I feel like if you hadn't told me what the album was about, the first couple songs I might have been confused, and then this song actually set the stage for what the album's about.
Right.
It explains that he's in a gunfight and he dies, and just kind of explains the emotions and stuff behind that.
Yeah. So in the context of the narrative, what is happening here is he's on his mission. He's taking revenge.
Oh, he's already taking revenge.
Yes. But I'm not invalidating what you were saying.
Okay,
This would clue you into the narrative.
Okay.
But it's my understanding that what is happening in this portion of the narrative is that the police have arrived for one of his things.
Okay.
So he's out there, he's killing people, he's in a diner, and since this is still the world, the police arrive because he is shooting people to death in a diner. But musically, I really like this one a lot.
That's what I was about to say. Just the way he puts emotion and just the kind of yelling vocals and the punk rockness of this, vocal style wise, it's very good.
Yep. He has incredibly emotive vocals that sound desperate and triumphant all at once. And the fact that they are imperfect really adds to the emotional impact of these songs, which really hit hard even if you didn't have somebody here explaining to you what he thinks it means.
Yeah.
And this one is much more musically dynamic than the ones we've gotten previously.
Yeah.
Particularly the last two songs. Helena's pretty cool. But this one, we have a nice guitar solo. We have a little precursor to some of the cabaret influence we get on Mama on Black Parade. At the very beginning, you can almost picture him as a jazz singer singing that opening vocal line.
Yeah.
And there are lots of transitions. There's that hard break into the chorus. There's a nice transition there where it goes from sort of noodly to very hard rock influenced and very punk rock influenced. And
I was about to say, just this song, at least vocal style wise, it was heavier than the others. And he does it well. That's like his style of heavy vocals, and it's shown very well in the song.
Right. Yeah. And as we get to this next one, we'll have much more of an opportunity to talk about the external or second meaning behind some of these songs. Because the last few we've listened to are sort of burying us in the narrative. They're explaining what's going on with our protagonist. But there are a number of tracks on this record that have double meanings, or in the case of this upcoming one, has one very non-narrative meaning. This one is you can easily tie this into the narrative, but it is mostly, I think that this one is the statement of what the band is really all about, both musically and in terms of thematics. So here we go, and we are going into "I'm Not Okay, I Promise," which was the first single off of this record. And since we're watching the video, which we are, you will get to see just how much of a personal statement this is for the band.
I'm excited for this one.
Yeah.
All right. I'm Not Okay, I Promise. In 3, 2, 1, go. All right. We just listened to I'm Not Okay, I
The
Promise.
anthem.
Yes, that's what I was about to say. So my initial thoughts were, this is the anthem of My Chemical Romance.
Yeah, it is.
It's like, oh man. Uh, so the music video shows teenagers in high school who are outcasts, who are bullied, who have issues, who are essentially outcasts, and that is who this band is appealing to, I would assume. I mean, it's pretty obvious the emo, punk rock, metal movement is for people who feel outside of everything that's popular in society. Uh, and so this song is kind of gathering in those people saying, we understand how you feel. We feel the same way. We're here for you. It's the anthem of My Chemical Romance. And so that's the obvious outside meaning of the song. And the only thing I would say that I could figure that this song has to do with the theme of the whole album would be he's taking revenge on the top dogs of high school, the bullies, because at the end all of the outcasts are having a war with the jocks and the
yeah. Yeah, and you'll notice that the music is much more triumphant than it is sad.
Oh yeah.
It's not pitying yourself for not being okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's screaming it in the face of everyone.
Yes.
And this one transcends the narrative because this is about revenge, but it's not about shooting people so that you can save your lover. This one is about revenge through being part of something. It's revenge through music. It's you're part of an artistic community that understands you in the very names of its songs. It knows that you're not okay. Gerard Way saw, the pain that was in young people at the time, that was in everybody at the time. And while, yes, this is about outsiders, it's not an exclusive club. It's for everyone who feels these things, which is everyone.
Exactly.
And it's about those who choose to acknowledge it, scream along with him that they're not okay, and to find catharsis in that. Your revenge is in that you have turned your pain into something beautiful and something energizing and something that has moved thousands and thousands of people to buy tickets for this current tour that they're on after being gone for a decade.
No, dude,
that's how much they mean to people.
The way you just explained that right there, that actually just like explains it so well. So what I'm getting from that is people who are on the outside in high school and in these tough social situations, they feel like they're alone. But when they band together in this community, realizing that everybody feels like that at some time, they're actually, this sense of community accomplishes more meaning in life than being one of the popular shallow people.
Exactly. Your greatest revenge is success.
Exactly. The revenge part of it is that you actually find more meaning.
Exactly.
Oh man, that's great.
Is that you have this beautiful thing and they don't.
Yeah.
But at the same time, as I've already said, it's not like the popular people can't join.
Because everybody feels like this.
Yeah, it's funny because it is revenge, but it's not like an irredeemable revenge. It's something that's available for everyone. And that's why this band meant so much to so many people.
Dude, I'm starting to get it.
Yeah, it's really great.
Yeah.
And this one, even though this is the anthem, you still have a lot of musical variation in this one. Even to the point where the guitar tone on the guitar solo is very rock and roll. It cuts right through the mix. It's very twangy, which is something that you don't hear very often.
Yeah.
So,
the two big musical things I was going to mention were the guitar solo, very rock and roll, and then towards the very end before the last chorus, he does kind of like a speaking part with harsh vocals, and it's very punk rock. I don't know exactly what the lyrics he was saying, but he just kind of did a spoken word, just like da 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 da, and then it jammed into the last chorus.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, it's really great. It's an excellent fusion of all those styles.
One thing I will say, so far on the album, I guess the Black Parade had kind of a pretty large variance in song types.
Yes.
This one's very much sticking to a very similar style throughout the album.
Yes, there's variance within the songs.
Mm-hmm.
There's variance across the album, but it's not as drastic as it is on the Black Parade.
Yeah.
On the Black Parade, I think that they were deliberately trying to bring in various musical styles.
Yeah.
And on this one, it's very much just about what do we want to do?
Yeah.
Which is part of the point, right? It is, what do we want to do?
Yeah.
And this is it.
Yeah, I'm starting to actually get what My Chemical Romance is about.
Right.
But this song being the anthem, I'm starting to get it because the Black Parade is just a good rock opera album.
It is.
It's not it's conceptual. It's not about as much. It's not about how this band drew everybody in.
Right.
And so this album's starting to give me more context and understand why this band is so popular.
Yeah. And I think I want to point out at this point, I don't know if it was Kerrang magazine, but some major music publication when this album came out, or maybe it was the Black Parade, but it was somewhere in this point in their career. Mm-hmm. They said that My Chemical Romance was both the best and worst band currently active. And that was one publication who gave them both designations.
Interesting.
And we can talk more about that as we go through. Okay. But I'm glad you're beginning to understand the ethos of this thing.
Okay.
Yeah. And now we're going into The Ghost of You, which is track 5, I think.
This is track 5. No, track 6.
Track 6. We're already 6 tracks in.
And this one has a music video as well.
It does. This was the final single released.
Okay. So when this one, I'm Not Okay, and then
I'm Not Okay was the first.
Okay.
Helena was the third,
and this
is the final. We'll get to the second later.
That makes sense.
But this one is very different from the last one. So
okay, all right,
here we go.
The Ghost of You in 3, 2, 1, go. Oh man! So that was The Ghost of You.
The Ghost of You.
And there's a music video with it, which really told the story. So in the context of this album, I would say this is hitting on the theme of departing from a lover. The music video is showing the USO playing for the army, and then they depart on D-Day. This is World War II era, and the song is hitting on the fact that when he's out at war, he's never gonna get back to his lover.
Yeah, so you can interpret this as being from the point of view as either the protagonist or his lover.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer to interpret it from the perspective of the lover.
Yeah.
Because it's about how now that he's become this damned soldier,
mm-hmm.
he can never really come back.
Oh, the soldier part. Even with the revenge, he's coming back and he's fighting.
Yeah, but now that he's done that, he'll never be the same. He's not him anymore. You know?
Dude, okay. See, surface level, this song, it's like it's just hitting on the theme that when people go to war, they may never make it back to their loved ones.
Right. Yeah.
But in the context of this album, that takes on a whole new meaning.
It does, yeah.
Oh, dang.
And even if you want to make it just about teenagers, because a lot of teenagers were a fan of this band.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you and I both know, we've had enough life experience to know that once a relationship ends,
mm-hmm.
so let's make it about that.
Yeah.
Once a relationship ends, you can continue to be friends with that person. You can get back together with that person,
but it's never the same.
It's never the same.
Oh.
And I know that I can speak from personal experience. Sometimes you might get back together with someone, and when you do, you miss the way it was in the beginning. But it can never be that again. And in that, and that's why it's important that this follows up their statement song of I'm Not Okay, right? Is this song has so much thematic versatility and so much emotional versatility, and no matter what he's saying, you can't change how beautiful the chorus is. You know,
dude, this song just blew my mind.
Yeah, so while I think Black Parade is the best album,
yeah,
this album is the one that really explains to a newcomer just why this band was so important.
Oh yeah,
you know.
Yeah. Oh dude, yeah. So musically, a little bit more rock than the other songs, just straight, you know. Uh, yeah, I mean, I really liked it. Again, it's very similar to, not similar to the other songs, but just kind of keeping the same theme musically. None of the songs are like really standing out from one another, but I'm also really enjoying every song.
You can definitely tell these are all from the same record.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And I do want to pay special tribute to the lead guitar on this one.
Okay.
There's no distinct solo, but if you listen to this a few more times, the lead guitar is doing a lot of really melodic things that are contributing to the song in ways you don't pick up on the first listen.
Okay.
Especially on the bridge, when you get this very, I hesitate to say noodly again, but you get a riff that is going up and down a scale.
Yeah.
Which is every riff. But it's vacillating up and down.
Yeah.
And it sounds very. It's difficult to even find a word for it. It's somber.
Yeah.
But it's somber from the position of someone who doesn't have to suffer. It's almost like the music is looking down on the protagonist.
Yeah.
You know, it's just telling his story without really having any sympathy for him or her.
Yeah. Interesting.
And so,
okay,
yeah, that's one of my favorites of theirs. Okay. This was one of the earliest songs I ever heard from the band.
Oh wow!
And I can't say this with any definitive knowledge, but it might have been one of the real hooks that got me into their music.
Okay.
And I also want to say before we move on, this song is incredibly melodic, but with the other songs, the modulation on his vocals, the way in which he changes from clean singing to just a little bit of screaming to he'll sing the same line but in a different way. It'll sound more desperate or strained.
Yeah.
All really contribute to the experience.
Oh yeah.
And I think that this one is also incredibly well constructed musically. I mean, it's just beautiful. It's like Helena.
Yeah.
You know, it's just such a tight piece of music that really conveys such a sad melodic emotion.
Yeah.
And when you dig into it, as I said with the lead guitar, there really is a lot going on.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Those are my thoughts.
So the 7th track is the Jetset Life is Gonna Kill You. And here we go.
All right.
In 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, that was This Jetset Life is Gonna Kill You.
Yeah.
Again, a very good song, very typical with the musical style of the whole album. The main thing that I picked up that could fit in with the story of this album is possibly, now this might be wrong, which is that he is having sympathy for someone he is about to kill.
And that seems like a valid theory.
Okay.
Most of what I have to say doesn't have to do with the narrative.
Okay.
And I'm basically willing to accept any interpretation of this as far as the narrative goes.
Okay.
Because what I have to offer for you is external information.
Okay.
Supplementary information. So something I haven't told you during either of our reviews of these albums, because I think I was really just saving it for this song, because this is the one where it matters the most.
Oh, okay.
Is that Gerard Way, the vocalist, as he has talked about himself in the early stages of this band, including 2004 when this album came out, had a drug problem.
Oh.
He was an alcoholic and he did a lot of cocaine. And and so when he started this band, he had a lot of self-loathing that came not just from depression, but from the drug abuse. And Jetset Life is someone who travels, does drugs, has a great time all the time. We've met people like this. And so, yes, this can fit into the narrative quite easily, but it's also very much about that kind of self-inflicted suffering. And there are a couple of lines in this that I think are really beautiful if you know what they're about, and sad, which is the cheesiest, not to take it down a peg or anything, but the cheesiest is that they're checking into the hotel Bella Muerte, which, if my understanding of romantic languages is correct, means beautiful death. Which is and a lot of times, the euphoria of cocaine and alcohol and the danger it poses could be interpreted as a beautiful death. And then there's another line that I think is the best line maybe on the whole album, which is, "We've spun this chamber dry." So you're thinking of someone who is playing Russian roulette. And has spun the chamber so many times.
See, that's what I was about to say, which is a couple of the lines confused me about the let me see what it is. The prescriptions.
Right.
Lost in the prescriptions. And then the chamber part, I was like, what is this about?
Yeah. So the chamber thing you can interpret two ways. One, the way that I think it's most literally interpreted, well, not literally, but it's the metaphor that I think is the most prominent, is that, if you have a drug problem, it's not that you don't know that you're putting yourself in danger. It's that, either there's something external you're not dealing with, or it's just that the pleasure is greater than the price.
Oh yeah.
And so
you're playing Russian roulette with your life.
Yeah, you're spinning in a chamber, but there are a plethora of reasons that I can deeply sympathize with for engaging in repetitive escapism that puts a threat to your own life. And as you spin the chamber dry, it's this questioning of, when is this going to end? Not just in terms of like, when am I going to finally get the bullet, but like, is there ever a way out? And I'm not speaking for Gerard here. That's important to point. I'm not trying to talk for him. I'm just talking about my own understanding of these kinds of feelings.
Yeah.
And but the other way that you can interpret it is that our our protagonist has been killing people for a long time now, because his charge was 1,000 souls. And it's beginning to become tedious and
almost like a drug problem. Like, is this going to destroy him?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Is it really about getting back to his lover, or is it about the killing itself?
Oh, dude.
So
this jet set life is going to kill you could be about about him killing people, and that life is going to destroy him as a person.
Yeah, because, and this doesn't speak for everyone who has drug problems, but think about it this way. In some cases, something traumatic happens, and somebody spins out of control. And that's what happens in the narrative of this story, is he dies, he loses the person he loves, and he makes a bad decision in order to get her back that has an enormous price.
Yeah.
Not just of damnation, but of having to do terrible things for a very long time.
Dude, I didn't even think about that. In this album, they were going to hit on the fact that, okay, so, it's this fantasy story, lover, they die, and he's got to go kill all these souls. But they actually talk about the emotional damage it does to someone if you're going to kill 1,000 people.
Yeah, because, I mean, how long can you hold on to
being human?
Yeah, or
after doing something like that.
In love.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
If the price to get someone back were to kill the person that killed you, well, that's an interesting narrative device, and it can be explained away pretty easily.
Yeah.
But if you have to kill 1,000 people that you don't know in order to be with the person you love, do you imagine that it would change you? And so this one is a really important one to talk about in terms of thematics.
Yeah.
Because musically, it's fairly straightforward. This is a hard rock song. It's got a lot of power chords. It has punk rock influence. Obviously, this band is melodic as hell.
Yeah.
Gerard Way doesn't know how to write a not catchy chorus.
Yeah, exactly.
So the music really isn't... I mean, it's a great song. I love this song. It is dynamic. I'm not saying that it's just like super dry or anything, but mostly it's very straightforward.
Yeah.
And that makes sense, because this whole album, at least to me, is about being honest with yourself. And, this whole thing was, I think, an experiment in being honest with everyone, as far as Gerard was concerned.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this one is a pretty heavy one once you get into what was behind it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's important to point out, I should say, that Gerard has been clean and happy for a long time.
Okay.
It's totally fine.
Good. Good.
but at this point, he had a lot to write about.
Yeah.
And I also want to point out, this is not necessarily about the album. I feel compelled to say this since we're putting this on the internet, that everything that I just said does not speak for everyone with drug problems.
Yeah.
I'm by no means trying to categorize what a drug problem is or diagnose anybody.
Yeah.
I'm simply trying to interpret this song.
Yeah.
I understand how sensitive an issue it is. I understand how much empathy it deserves. And I just want to make that statement so that nobody misinterprets my interpretation of this song as some sort of boxing in of what drug addiction is.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So.
Yeah. I understand. All right, we have a very short song coming up. This is Interlude. I'm assuming it's going to be kind of a break in the middle of the album.
But I think, yes, it is. But I think that this one does deserve its own play.
Okay.
So
Interlude in 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, Interlude. And it's an interlude in the middle of the album.
It is.
It's a minute long. Just a little bit of instruments and him kind of sweetly singing "Angels Come Protect Her," something like that. Saints protect her now. Come angels of the Lord. Come angels of unknown.
Right. So he's
asking for the angels to come protect his lover as he's on this killing spree. Okay.
This one is pretty purely connected to the narrative
of.
I think it's pretty clear after the last song that we just got through that this guy is pretty far along in his narrative journey.
Yeah.
Probably hasn't seen her in a long time, and so he's praying for someone, whether it be from God or from the unknown, to come protect his lover.
Okay, that makes sense.
And yeah, it's just a nice little interlude. The guitar tone is unusually dry, but I like it. You know, there isn't a ton of reverb or anything thrown on it, which I think is actually good.
Yeah.
Because it adds everything about the interlude is kind of weak. His vocals are weak, and I'm not saying that as a criticism.
Negative. It's just like they're actually less power.
Yeah, it sounds like he is about to give out, like collapse in on himself.
Yeah.
And the guitar tone is the same. There aren't any bells or whistles. It's pretty dry. It is an electric guitar, but they haven't done a whole lot to it. And the only thing that really shifts is there's a little dynamic shift in volume.
Yeah.
About a third of the way through.
Okay.
And yeah, so that's just a nice little interlude, and that's really all I can say about it.
Yeah, I mean, I do enjoy interludes in an album. So if we weren't breaking up each song like this, if I'm sitting down and listening to an album all the way through, especially if I'm really experiencing an emotional response to the songs, and then a nice little interlude kind of resets everything.
Yeah, and I think that that's what's happening here, and I think that it's important for the experience of the album as well, because this is wedged between two of the more intense songs, and so this is just a moment of genuine sadness wedged in between expressions of frustration.
Okay.
The next one is not exactly frustration, but we'll get into the way in which it is intense. The next one, by the way, is track, what is it, 10?
9.
Track 9, which is Thank You for the Venom.
Ooh.
This is one of my favorites on the album.
Okay.
And this is one that I think you're going to like quite a bit.
Okay.
So we'll jump into it.
All right. Yeah. Thank You for the Venom, track 9. 1, 2, 3, go. All right, so we just listened to Thank You for the Venom. Definitely one of my favorite songs of the album.
Yeah.
Musically, I mean, it's catchy, it's very hard rock. So here's my take, Chris, on the way this fits into the story. So it's the protagonist expressing distraught emotions about having to kill all these people. He's talking to, I guess, all the people against him who are trying to stop him from killing these people. And he's kind of voicing like, hey, I don't like doing this either, but give me a better reason than... Wait, he's trying to say he'll do anything to get back to his lover, and nothing's going to stop him, and do whatever it takes to try to convince him, because he doesn't like doing this, but he will do anything to get back to his lover.
It's actually the opposite.
Whoa. he's saying
he likes it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. He likes the resistance. It's on one stage, it's the fact that his lover has died is now become something he's happy for.
So at this point, his lover's dead.
Excuse me, I said that in reverse. The fact that he has died and that his lover has suffered without him has now become fuel for this thing that he's found he likes. He now likes being the devil's hitman.
And so that's why it's thank you for the Venom.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and he likes the fact that they hate him and that they fight him.
Interesting.
Because it's fun. And it's, you have to remember, this one follows up a song about drug addiction.
Yeah.
And they connect in that way. And that, the pain you've given me has in some way made things just that much more fun. It's very nihilistic.
Yeah.
If you think of like a jester archetype, like obviously that's what we've decided the character of the Joker in Batman is now, right?
Yeah.
It's somebody who takes that hatred and that nihilism and just is having a great time.
Okay.
But all right, but there is a more wholesome message in this as well.
Okay.
In another way, this is very anthemic and very much a statement for the band, in that this is an anthem for everybody who feels like an outcast, who has been treated cruelly. And as we said earlier, that state of mind has led them to be a part of this great thing, which is My Chemical Romance. And in general, just to be confident on your own, to be yourself, to be self-expressive without concern about what other people think. And in a way, this is a big thank you to everyone who made you feel so alone, because it has given you this beautiful thing, right?
So I'm Not Okay is letting everyone know it's okay to be an outcast, because now you have this community where you're gonna find so much more meaning than all the popular people. And now this song is like, you should actually thank those people for making you feel like that.
Exactly. Because this is so much better than trying to be on the football team or whatever.
Yeah.
That we're having so much fun.
Oh,
and
dude.
And you and I can kind of relate to this, since we know how fun it is to be at a concert and to be in the pit.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And that's it's a dumb example, but you know what I mean, is that once you get into an artistic community like metal, or in this case like emo music, or whatever you'd like to call this, maybe just My Chemical Romance, you know how much joy that can bring. And how exuberant you can be, and just how wonderful it is, how euphoric it is. And so this is all about that. And it's important to point out that, and the anecdote I'm about to tell actually took place on the Black Parade tour, so that's just for you, but it doesn't really matter. This band actually had like tomatoes and crap thrown at them during a show, and they played the whole show. They just did it.
So like people like didn't like it and threw tomatoes.
Yeah, I think it was at Wacken in Germany. They played a huge metal arena show outdoors, and people were throwing cans and things at them, and they just played the whole set anyway and had no response except for like just a big grin in the face of everybody who said that they were, emo music or for teenagers or sissy music or whatever. And that's what this whole band is about, is that it's, this is what we're doing. And it makes us feel so much better, and we also feel like we're being so much more honest than everybody else. And so, and so this is about that as much as it is about a fallen protagonist who now enjoys the fact that he's a murderer.
Interesting question that I have for the audience who have been to My Chemical Romance shows. Do they mosh?
I'm sure they do, right?
Okay.
I mean, I've seen people mosh at EDM shows. And
that's true.
So, but that is a good question. So please, if you've been part of an epic mosh pit at a My Chemical Romance show, especially back in the day.
Yeah, back in 2004, 2006 era. If you have been, drop it down in the comments and let us know.
Yeah. And also on the music, I want to point out that this one is like there's a ton of post-hardcore influence on this one.
Yeah, I hear
that riff at the beginning and at the end can easily get slipped into a Thrice song and Alexis on Fire song, even a metalcore song beyond post-hardcore. If you put, you tuned it down to drop C or whatever. This one has a ton of post-hardcore influence on it.
Yeah.
So this one is super musically interesting as well, and it just has a ton of energy.
I can definitely start to hear the post-hardcore, the punk, and the just normal rock music influence on the band as in general.
Yeah, because you have a slightly more complex riff that drives it, and then you have the power chords on the chorus, like punk rock, and there are hard rock influences, and there's a guitar solo on this one.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty flying, and as with all of their guitar solos, there seems to be rock and roll influence all over those things.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Interesting. All right, this is the 10th track. 10th track, Hang 'Em High. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1, go. All right, we just listened to Hang 'Em High. Wow, there was a lot going on there musically. I mean, so Hang 'Em High, the first thing that came to my head is like Western, like hanging people out there. In the first couple instrumental chords made it sound Western.
There was some whistling.
Yeah, exactly. Then that just went out the window into a very fast beat, punk style. Him delivering the lyrics just messy and rough and fast.
Very frantic.
Yes, exactly. Frantic. And then it goes into a melodic chorus. And then the instrumentals just slam in chaotically.
Yeah, it's so good. So it's named after a Western. I might be wrong, but I think it's named after a Clint Eastwood movie.
Okay.
I haven't seen it.
Okay.
But I've seen a lot of other Clint Eastwood movies that he starred in, not that he directed.
Yeah.
And they're bounty hunters.
Yeah, exactly.
it's a relevant theme.
Yeah. The one main theme I was going to hit on is what I caught on to this is that it's about a killing spree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you notice how many times he said the words "she won't stop me"?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's turning on him. In my interpretation of
his lover's turning on him, and he's like, "Too bad. I love this killing. We're on a killing spree."
In my interpretation of the narrative, she's beginning to disagree with this, and he's, as we've talked about in the last couple of songs, he's begun to lose track of what this is about. It's not to him. It's not really about her anymore.
Yeah.
It's about It's about the act itself.
Yeah.
It's like CrossFit.
Okay. All right. And with that, we're going into the 11th track out of... okay, we just got 3 left. This is... It's not a fashion statement. It's a Deathwish.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Let's go.
All black everything.
3, 2, 1, go. Okay, we just listened to It's Not a Fashion Statement, It's a Deathwish. Essentially what I got from that song, music style-wise, similar to the rest of the album. A little more on the hard rock side. Very good. Really enjoyed it. Okay, so what I was really focusing on is what he was saying in the context of the narrative. I think he's talking to his lover.
Yep.
Who is disappointed with him in the way he has gone completely off the hinges. And he's kind of is he kind of saying he's coming for her next?
No.
Okay.
No, he's trying to reunite with her.
Okay, yeah, but he's like...
It's not working out.
Yeah, exactly. Like, some of the statements were about, like, would they even work out? Like, if he comes back after this killing spree, they even get back together... Because of everything he's been through and how he's changed now, it's not even going to work now.
Yeah, I think that's a viable theory.
Okay.
I have a difficult time picturing exactly what's happening here. I know that it's about the point where he tries to reunite with her.
Yeah.
It's toward the end of his journey, and it's not working so well.
Yeah.
And that's, that's really all I understand about it. And based on what we've already discussed and what I already believe about the record, it's completely reasonable to believe that Mr. Bloody Faced Man over here
on the album cover
has just gone too far away from whom to who he from whom. Damn it! From whom he thought that he was, and or whom she thought he was.
Yeah.
And she really doesn't love him anymore.
Yeah. Interesting.
Which, I probably wouldn't be friends with you if you killed 1,000 people.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah.
Okay. And that leads us into our second to last track, Cemetery Drive.
I love this one.
Okay. I'm assuming this is about to put a cap on the story, start to lead us into the end of how this story is going to end. I got a feeling it's not going to end too well. That they're probably not going to end up together. But, we'll see if love prevails.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out real quick to the drums on this record before we move on.
Yeah.
We haven't discussed the drumming at all.
That's true.
And it's really good.
Yeah, it is.
It's pummeling when it needs to be. It's energizing when it needs to be. The guy's a master of the snare drum.
Mm-hmm.
He brings in the crash cymbals when he has to in these really creative and interesting ways. It's really great.
Yeah.
And also all the music is great. The guitar work is excellent. Transitions from power chords to staccato power chords to these interesting melodic leads. And I just want to, we've been talking a lot about the narrative, so I feel compelled to give a little shout out to the actual music that's going on here.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
All right, second to last track 12, Cemetery Drive. In 3, 2, 1, go. Oh man, so we just listened to Cemetery Drive. So as we're listening to the songs, we're looking at the lyrics and I'm listening to the music, trying to figure out what's going on. And at first, I understood this is a goodbye song to his lover. In the context of the song, he has come back. The last song, he's talking about trying to unite with her. In this song, so this is my interpretation. This is what I initially thought. I think they united, and she couldn't deal with the fact of being with him anymore and what he has become, and she killed herself.
Yep.
Oh, jeez, dude.
Yeah, that's the way the narrative goes.
Oh man.
This one, she unfortunately committed suicide.
Yeah.
You can tell from the lyrics that she cut herself and bled out in the bathroom.
So it's like they reunited. They were hanging out in the cemetery. They were having a good time drinking from the lyrics, and then, It's
not clear how much of that literally happens.
Okay.
It might just be, the actual funeral.
Okay.
In a sort of metaphorical funeral.
Yeah.
Of walking, you can interpret it as her ghost to the grave or taking just her body to the grave or whatever.
Yeah.
Or maybe they were together in a funeral. I mean, not a funeral, in a cemetery. But yes, she can't deal with the fact that he's not him anymore, and she ends her life because their death and near death are what this whole narrative is about.
Yeah. And so musically, the only things I have to say was I did really like the way I describe it is the funky verses, just kind of the way he's speaking through, and it gets quiet, and then goes into a melodic chorus. And then the next time he jumps into this style of verses, it's a little bit more emotional, a little bit more powerful, and then it explodes into the last chorus.
What I will say is that I think that this song utilizes contrast the best of all the songs on the record. The verses and the choruses have a lot of contrast between these really reverb-heavy, poppy electric leads that sort of jolt out at you, and then the power chord heavy choruses, and the way he sings softly on the verses, and the way that he sings, almost like near belting on the choruses, and the variations that occur during the bridge where the guitarist starts chugging and the drums pick up. And yes, there is a lot of contrast. The verses are very interesting. I like them a lot too. I love the drumline snare at the beginning and throughout. That's all really great.
Yeah.
So yeah, this one is also one of the most musically interesting. I agree with that as well.
Okay. And so that leads us into the final track of the album.
That's right.
Which is I Never Told You What I Do for a Living.
Right. Oh, I want to say one more thing.
Okay.
Have I missed it? I have. It was a couple of songs ago. There 2 songs ago.
Yeah.
If you remember what that was.
It's Not a Fashion.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a line in that one I forgot to talk about.
Okay.
And it doesn't matter that we missed it for the song because it's important for the whole album.
Okay.
Which is he has borrowed a line from a very famous comic book right up at the top.
Right up at the top.
Which is you get what everyone else gets. You get a lifetime.
Oh, okay.
Which is from Neil Gaiman's Sandman.
Okay.
And
like Spider-Man, Sandman.
Yeah, it's like that. No, it's not. It's about a character named Dream, and his sister is Death.
Okay.
And Death is the one who speaks the line, "You get what everyone gets, a lifetime."
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So.
I do like. Oh, man.
Yeah.
I do like how this album, it tells a story, but also a lot of the songs have standout meanings outside of the whole theme.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring that line up because as we get to the climax here, where she ends her own life, you have to consider that our protagonist has maybe been reaching for something that is unnatural.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's not meant to last forever, and now he's discovering that even in damnation and immortality, it doesn't last forever.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I Never Told You What I Do for a Living. Final track. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, okay. So we just listened to the final track. I Never Told You What I Do for a Living. That was a lot to absorb. A lot going on musically. One of the standout tracks of the album.
Yeah, I think it's the most musically interesting.
Yeah.
Because as the first track gives you an introduction to what you're about to hear, that one really ties all the different musical elements together really well. That's
true. It's very epic, as My Chemical Romance always does.
Yeah.
A very epic ending to their albums. Yeah, love that song musically. Trying to figure out what it means in the context of the whole theme. Let's see. Essentially, so she's dead now, and I believe he died during this. Like he's back on Earth, and we both have 2 shots to the head. He's dead now, and he's trying to say it's better off. We can be together now in eternity. Now that we both actually experienced death, we can be together in this way now.
Yeah, now they're both in hell.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, essentially.
I'm not exactly sure how this concludes because I'm just going off of the understanding I've had for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm aware that there's some sort of damnation at the end. You know, technically she died and he didn't fulfill whatever he was charged to do.
Yeah.
But now they're both dead.
Yeah.
They were both shot in the back of the head, apparently, originally. And so it's over. They're going to eternity forever. I'm not sure what her fate is.
Okay.
And he's also experiencing a lot of regret. You know, he's screaming about how he can't get the blood off of his sheets in his hands. And, you know, he's permanently changed.
Yeah.
Even though now he has to continue to endure in immortality.
Yeah.
And he's coming to terms with everything that he just did. You know, he has this moment of clarity regarding his own enjoyment of all these terrible things.
Yeah.
And, like I said with Cemetery Drive, there's a ton of contrast on that one between the super dry but also super clean electric guitar, the excellent drumming, power chords come in, it's super epic, like you said. There's a sense of grandeur to the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
Gerard's vocals are all over the place, and it's excellent. You know, he continues to sound just super desperate, and raw.
Yeah.
So I think maybe it's appropriate that neither of us are exactly sure how that ends.
Yeah.
Because we know that it's not happy.
No.
Yeah. And we're aware of the arc that it took.
Okay. So I've now heard this album for the first time, absorbing everything I've heard. I'm going to give it a score from 1 to 10 based on my enjoyment. Just for reference, I believe I gave The Black Parade somewhere between a 7 and 8. And I'm also going to take into account musically what's going on, the whole theme of the album. I'm going to have to say a solid 7.5 out of 10.
I feel the same.
Really?
7.5.
Yeah.
7.5. That's exactly how I feel. Yeah.
Man, dude, I mean, it's consistent.
It is.
Consistently good. None of the songs were just like duds.
No, there are no dips in quality.
Yeah.
It's really solid.
Style-wise, pretty consistent throughout the album. Way more punk rock than I was expecting.
Yeah, there's a lot of punk rock influence on the first two records. A lot of hardcore, as you heard, and as I pointed out, some post-hardcore influence here, even on that last track there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, very punky. They hadn't moved on to the level of grandeur of the Black Parade at this point.
Yeah.
That doesn't make it worse.
Yeah.
It's just their style evolved with every record.
Huh.
So,
I guess I can officially say I'm a My Chemical Romance fan.
Hell yeah.
So, does that make me emo?
Okay. So now we have to get into discussing the definition of emo. It's been pointed out to us that in the last video we did, it seemed almost like we were being dismissive of emo.
Or using it like a insult or something derogatory.
As if it were a derogatory term.
No.
And that's
not what we meant.
That's not the case at all. If it came off that way, it was just because Connor and I don't typically listen to emo music a lot, and so we were just sort of joking with one another about some of the exaggerations of the genre.
And it's also the fact that I don't have any experience with people who subscribe to that subculture, who listen to that kind of music.
Right.
I really don't have any knowledge of it.
Yeah. And it's because there's some internal warfare.
Okay.
I'm aware that My Chemical Romance is not universally considered to be an emo band.
Okay.
They are popularly considered to be an emo band.
Yeah.
And I think that part of the fear that we might be making fun of people started with this band because, as I said, they were simultaneously considered the best and the worst band.
Okay.
And it's because people who were gatekeepers, the more pretentious folks, not just of emo, but of music in general, found this to be they were like, oh my gosh, you're singing about your teenage sorrows. Even the guitar sounds like it's whining, da 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 da, you know? And then I know that there were some folks who were into bands like American Football, who is a great example of a classic emo band, Jawbreaker, bands like those, that also thought that this was too much of a departure from the emo aesthetic.
Okay.
Because obviously emo is a culture.
Yes.
And personally, I don't believe that those lines need to be so stringent.
Yeah.
But some people do. And go ahead.
Yeah. So one thing I was going to say, which is, I think, so me and Chris are 23. When we were in high school, we've kind of missed the mark of the original emo subculture. So me growing up, the terms emo, scene, goth, all those were kind of used synonymously.
Yeah, they're blended together.
Yeah, and I'm aware now from seeing a lot of metal TikToks out there. There's a lot of people posting, metal, listening to metalcore songs who are using the hashtag they're scene kids, that they are also goth and emo at the same time, which was very confusing. But I think, just from my understanding, just before our generation, maybe, people who are like 10 years older than us, there were very distinct subcultures of a goth movement, a scene movement, and an emo movement. And as time progressed and lines have been blurred, all of those have kind of just been blended together.
So a couple of things happened.
Okay.
The first is that the culture became more representative of emo than
Okay.
the music did.
Okay.
So the very somber, math rock oriented Midwest American emo music, which is very spacey, lots of reverb, strange time signatures, and these very beautiful but sad riffs with sort of half-hearted vocals sung
Yeah.
over them about personal sorrows.
That's
That got
original emo.
yeah, that's the way I can describe it. You need to just
Okay.
go listen to it.
Yeah.
But it got pushed down underneath emo culture,
Okay.
and then emo culture was co-opted by scene culture.
Okay.
And so those things got blended together in a way that pissed a lot of people off.
Okay.
um, scene culture is really where you get the origin of swoopy hair and long
Yeah.
bangs
Colorful.
and super black, tight, skinny jeans, but like super colorful T-shirts, all that sort of stuff is
When I think of scene, I think of girls with like red, pink, yellow hair.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Whereas in the late '90s, early 2000s, emo, the aesthetic of an emo person looked more like a softened version of grunge, really. You had your
Okay.
flannel shirt and some jeans, and it really wasn't
Oh.
about the look. It was about the music. It was about being
Okay.
honest about what you were feeling
Mm-hmm.
and in a certain part of the world at a certain time.
Okay.
And
And then I think what's happened is the goth style of clothing has now moved into all of these subcultures. Just the black eyeliner, all black everything. That's a very metal thing. That's a very
yeah.
punk and emo and just all of these.
And goth was a whole other thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Goth was just like all of these. It was music before it was culture.
Mm-hmm.
And the culture was built around the music. And goth came out of UK punk music.
Okay.
It was an offshoot of UK punk rock.
Okay.
And then you had bands like The Cure that started wearing black eyeliner, dyeing their hair black. They had very pale skin, sometimes influenced by makeup, dark
Okay.
clothing, and you got this goth aesthetic that was very much supposed to be representative of death.
Okay.
Right? And then some of that was taken into bands like My Chemical Romance. Not that
Yeah.
this was a bad thing,
Yeah.
and it was fused with other styles, other cultures.
Yeah.
My Chemical Romance is very much doing their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
They have goth hair, they have pale skin, but they're wearing relaxed fit khakis. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
They like their tie, or at least in this album, a lot of the music videos, ties and suits and
yeah. And they were never a part of the skinny jeans and swoopy bangs and anything.
okay.
But all of it is blended together in the minds of people who really weren't there.
Yeah, exactly. Like in my mind, someone who hadn't experienced any of this or known people or listened to this music, it was just all blended together. And just someone who wore, like I in high school, I might have called a metalhead someone who was emo. Someone who just wore black t-shirts and
Yeah,
had black hair.
because
And
you just don't know.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's that maxim of always assume ignorance before you assume malice.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. Because, like, I mean, on the outside, I know My Chemical Romance fans may not consider themselves emo or the band emo, or some of them do. I'm not sure. But on the outside, someone who hadn't listened to them before, I had considered My Chemical Romance to be the face of emo music. Like,
Yeah.
they've kind of made that name for themselves with people who haven't listened to it or don't know much about it.
Yeah. And I think it's fine to call them emo music.
Okay.
We're just kind of having a conversation to talk about, where certain folks do delineate.
Yeah.
And I want to reiterate that the whole point of this exercise, this reaction, this video, whatever, is to investigate this music,
Yeah.
to see why it's so good,
Yeah.
to enjoy it,
Yeah, exactly.
And so for anybody out there who thinks that we're a couple of metalheads who are just making fun of emo kids, that's not the case at all.
No, I mean, I'm considering myself a My Chemical Romance fan. I'm glad
Yeah.
that we've investigated this because there's obviously something to bands like this who have such a cult following and such a popular following.
Yeah.
So obviously something's going on there musically that I probably would enjoy.
Yeah, and if you just take the time, to sit down and really listen to it,
Yeah,
often you find it pretty quickly.
that's true.
So yeah, I mean that's just our little discussion on emo music
Yeah.
in general, and sort of an apology or something. If anybody thinks that we're talking down.
Yeah. So yeah, overall, 3 cheers for Sweet Revenge. Solid album. For any My Chemical Romance fans out there, throw your suggestions down in the comments if you want us to react to another My Chemical Romance album. I mean, they probably have like 4 or 5 albums out.
They have 4 full albums,
Okay.
and then I think they have 2 EPs.
Okay.
But they're all in the same series. They're called
Okay.
Conventional Weapons.
Okay. So yeah, we did Black Parade first. The 3 cheers for Sweet Revenge second. So if you guys have the third suggestion, maybe we should go to the newest one or the oldest one. I don't know. Let us know.
The oldest one.
Is it good?
I personally like it better than the newest one, but obviously we will take their suggestions.
Okay. Interesting. So. All right. Cool. Well, guys, that about sums it up. This is Connor and Chris from Metal Inside Me, and that's all we got.
Yeah.
See you guys.